All right, excellent afternoon to all those who are listening to me across the states in Nigeria. I want to start off the show with a powerful quote by Nobel laureate and first woman president of Liberia, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, who says that, if your dreams do not scare you, they are not big enough, and the size of your dreams must always, exceed your current capacity to achieve them. So if your dreams do not scare you guys, if you're listening to me right now, know that they are not big enough. Again, I welcome you to another interesting episode of Real Talk with Kike. I remain your convener and, of course, the chief host, Kike Atanda-Owo. I think it's important for us to hear what on this day in issue segment asks for. Stay with me, and when I return, I'll give my submission on it. I'll be right back. Many thanks for staying with me. My takeaway from today's on this day in history segment is a classical example of he who lives to fight another day fights tomorrow. You can't champion a cause or struggle by fighting to lose your life because you need to sustain yourself for the battle ahead of you, or that continues for you to wax more people or power to your own cause. And the likes of Chief Anthony Enaoro, Chief Wole Soyinka, and Chief Olu Falaye, still exist after the then president who made them go on exile that has died. I just feel that that's my takeaway from on this day in history segment today. I think it's important for us to hear a message from my sponsors, and when I return, the main conversation I will dive into it. Stay with me, I'll be right back. All right, many thanks for staying with me. On my previous editions of International Women's Day celebration, I've had the pleasure of hosting female giants of industry to speak on their viewpoints of the theme of inspire inclusion and from their own career perspective, And today I have another giant. I call her an Amazon in Africa because of her achievements and, of course, her representation of women across board. And of course, my upcoming discussion with my guests will focus on the state of women's rights and, of course, gender equality in Nigeria, exploring key challenges faced by women in accessing justice and equality. And we'll dive into our work as the founding director of Women Advocates Research and, of course, Documentation Center, that's the WARDC, and its impact. It's important for me to emphasize on that, on promoting women's rights, the governance, and, of course, the rule of law. But before we delve further with my guests, I think it's important for me to share our profile with you, and when I return, we'll go straight to the main conversation. Stay with me. I'll be right back. All right, welcome to the show, Dr. Akiyode Afolabi. It's a pleasure to have you on Real Talk with Kike today. Many thanks for creating time to join me virtually today. How are you doing today, ma?
I'm fine. I'm good. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Good to know. Good to know. So let's just go straight to the topic at hand, because as a prominent civil rights activist and lawyer, how do you perceive the current state of women's affairs in Nigeria, and what's your overview on the progress that has been made by the likes of people like you over the years in the struggle for women's rights in Nigeria?
Thank you very much, and I want to wish you also happy International Women's Day, and I want to also commend your work. It's been very impactful in showcasing, the work that women are doing, and this is also important contribution to our gender equality work. So back to your question, if I look at it, Women Advocate Research and Documentation Center was started in the year 2000, and so meaning that we have been in existence for 24 years. So if we look at impact in the work that women organizations or women associations have been doing, I would say yes. Let me take, for instance, when we started in 2000, there was actually no enabling law regulating violence against women and girls in the country. When we started in 2000, there were no, we only had 3 women, at the National Assembly. So if we look at the progress that has been made since that time, and now, as of today, we can talk about there's a national law regulating violence against women and girls. There are also laws in 34 states across Nigeria also dealing with that issue. There are also more women if we compare to what we had in 2000 and what we have currently. One would say that there's been progress even in the political space. Despite that, the progress is marginal. So by and large, there's been a lot of progress. There are institutions currently that are created to strengthen gender equality. Nigeria had signed twice now. In 2006, they signed the National Gender Policy. In 2022, another National Gender Policy that has been reviewed has also been signed. So in terms of policy, so the government has what can be called a policy direction, that can support engendering gender equality in the country. But there are a lot of challenges. So some of these things are done, but implementation has been very poor, it's been weak, and it's been ineffective. And that's why it looks like the problem is so endemic, and it's becoming very difficult, for us to be able to overcome the problem.
All right, many thanks for that insight right there. And I like the fact that you also have touched on the fact that the problem is a bit endemic, because you are a big fish with a big name in the global civil society. I must put it out there, because and I would like you to share some insights, into that work of women advocates, when it comes to your research work and when it comes to your research, and of course the organization that you head, that is the WARDC, your organization that is doing so much in terms of impact on promoting women's rights, in terms of human rights, in terms of governance, and of course the rule of law in Nigeria. I would like you to speak to that.
Okay, thank you. Now, if you look at, I think about 2 weeks ago, the National Assembly had brought out the call for memorandum, which is supposed to contribute to the review of the Constitution. One of the things that the current administration wants to do is also to contribute to constitutional review. We have been having that since the time of President Obasanjo, and so it looks like every administration has an agenda to improve on the Constitution. So one of the things we've done over time is to try to harness voices and empower women groups, to articulate the issues that they think are important, to be part of the Constitution. And that has led to a huge network called Gender and Constitutional Reform Network, 5 gender bills, and a whole lot of other things that, have come up around, constitutional debate. Maybe if there is no grouping, of that manner, the issue of women in the Constitution will not even be on the table. And as we all know, Constitution is the ground norm of the society. It's an organic law. It's supposed to guide and drive the way people are seen, the way people are treated, in any society. Every constitution operates with the understanding that it is expected to promote, gender equality. Whether it is South African constitution, whether it is Eritrea, whether it is Kenya, that's always one of the basic things right from the time of Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948. But we have our own constitution that speaks to that. But in the contrary, there are a whole lot of issues within that constitution that impugn on the integrity of women in Nigeria and does not make them to be a full owner of that constitution as it's supposed to be. For example, the issue of citizenship. The issue of citizenship seems not, to be the same, for men and women, within the constitutional framework. While a man who get married can bring his wife to become a citizen of Nigeria, a woman who get married to a non-citizen cannot. So those are some of the basic issues. That constitution, for example, is also speaking to issues of when do we say a child is an adult? So the constitution in a way says that any woman who is married is deemed to be an adult. And when you look at it, particularly from the context of the fact that most women are married off end, and most of them are not even 18, yet to become an adult. So the constitution is also not speaking about. So if you look at the new constitution in other countries, like South Africa, for example, they have addressed some of those issues. So they are a little bit ahead of us. So one of the things that we do in that group of women advocating for better right for women in Nigeria is to insist that one of the first things we need to have is a constitution that speaks to the dignity of women. Is a constitution that speaks to our aspiration as women in Nigeria. If we don't have a constitution that reflects our aspiration as women in Nigeria, that means we are half citizens. So, and which is not supposed, to be. So, one of the things we have worked on was to bring that to fore, to let people understand that there's something wrong with the constitution, and that when we deal with it, we'll be able to deal with other issues in the country that has to do with women. So, if our constitution is defective, it will be very difficult for any government, to be able to get it right for women. So that's like the first point of call.
Many thanks for your submission right there. I have two questions for you, because as you were speaking, I just felt that, with your extensive experience in advocating for gender-based violence prevention, I like the fact that, you've spoken to the institution that speaks on behalf of women. Could you discuss some effective strategy for combating this, pervasive issue in Nigerian society? That's my first question to you, ma'am. And my second question is the fact that as the chairperson of the Transition Monitoring Group, that's the TMG, how do you envision the role of civil society organization in promoting inclusive governance, electoral integrity in Nigeria? Because ma'am, I keep it real on this platform. However you look at it, I feel one of the things that we've been struggling with, especially when it comes to the citizen, is the trust and integrity that they do not have for the leaders.
Thank you very much. So on the issue of sexual and gender-based violence, it is an idle-headed issue, and we have tried as much as possible to deal with it from different components, from provision of services for people who have suffered violence. There are very few organizations with shelter. People even want to find a place to go. When, violence comes in different ways. There's a physical one, there's emotional, there's psychological, So the fact that you are not beaten does not mean that you are not being violated. So we see quite a number of women who suffer mostly emotional and psychological. And there's also the one that has to do with economy. So what you do is that you try to make her poor. You try not to allow her to be able to do her work so that she can remain subservient to you. So there is that power dynamics within the home that continue to suppress, the woman inside the home. And to that extent, that affects, her ability. And that also, it's a violence on its own. So one of the things that we have got to know over time is to expand and understand our context and define that violence in a way that actually relates to the women in Nigeria. And that's what is embodied in the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, which was passed in 2015, which is one of the first legislation that is very comprehensive, that deals with almost every issue, that deals with issue of female genital mutilation, and I ask why. Why would anybody mutilate a woman? One, because they feel that if you are mutilated, it will reduce our ability to enjoy sex. It will reduce our ability to be promiscuous and all of that. So which are not in any way biologically proven, but people are being subjected to female genital mutilation, in a huge manner. And before the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act came, that was not in our law. It's not been addressed. So meaning that several women are being left, to be mutilated, against their wish. So the law also looked to issue of domestic violence, which is one of the most prevalent violence that occur, and it's also occurring because issues are seen as political and personal. So issue of violence against women is seen as personal to women. It's seen as a private affair. So when you get to police, the policeman says, "Go back and meet your husband. You guys get your family to resolve it." And because of that, women are dying. We saw Osinachi, we saw a lot of deaths occur here and there, by women, of women, and the law was not ready to resolve. So the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act also came in to redress that. One major issue is the issue of rape. Rape in criminal law is seen as when somebody inserts, something in your private organ. But over time, we realize beyond that. People are raped in different ways. So the law has expanded in that regard. So that rape is not just seen as private organ to penetration, but beyond private organ, any organ, that is being inserted on anywhere of any aspect part of the body that is supposed to be seen as sexual in any way is seen as rape. So the law has moved beyond what it used to be before. And that's part of the contribution that civil society organization has done in that regard. And there are other things. There are also sexual assault and reference center across in almost like 20 states across that, which were part of the demand that people must have a place to go. And government has a responsibility to provide a space where women can go, to discuss about their sexual and sexual issues. So that's also there. There is also this issue of maternal mortality. Nigeria contributes 10%, to the global maternal death. You can imagine what that means. If Nigeria is contributing that much to the global maternal death, and out of this global maternal death, 24% are as a result of unsafe abortion. And Nigeria has not also legalized the termination of pregnancy, for different reasons, whether it is rape, whether it's incest, So there are a lot of issues that are, out there that we are resolving, one after the other, so that the country can have a space that is, supportive of growth and development of its women. And so it's a lot of work, but a lot of progress has been made. About 30 states now have SAC centers. The Violence Against Persons Prohibition law have been passed in 34 states, except Kano and Lagos State. Lagos has a domestic violence prohibition law, but it's just to pass a comprehensive law. So those are the places that we're still negotiating. And it was not easy. It was not easy to negotiate these laws to be passed. It was not easy. We met a lot of religious challenges, traditional challenges, but we are surmounting some of those challenges because of experience and the work that women organizations are doing, both at national and also at grassroots level. Now, on the issue of elections, I'm currently not the head of transition monitoring group, but there's someone else who is heading now. I know that our election is a major problem, and there are a lot of attempts towards electoral reform, but we have not. Our election has gone to judiciary, so it looks like when an election is not going well, people say let's meet in the court. So there is a challenge whether that is the best attitude, whether the court should be the final arbiter on issues of election, or the Nigerian citizens should be able to choose, who they want to elect. And I think that is where we need to do a lot of reorganization. INEC is overburdened, so there's a need to unbundle INEC. There are things that INEC is doing currently that are not supposed to be the business of INEC. So we need to identify those issues. Let's give election matter alone to INEC, and let us allow other institutions to carry some of the other bodies that INEC is working on, whether it's voter education, election petition. So you just see INEC, here and there. Part of election petition, part of election, defending the election, and all of that. So we need to recreate the electoral architecture in the country in such a manner that it will benefit the people. We need to be people-centered with our electoral reform. If we are not, they will probably not be able to get us anywhere.
Again, many thanks for your elaborate submission right there. Earlier when you were talking, I like the fact that you touched on the issue of Osinachi. And when you were speaking, one thing that was coming to mind is educating the girl child and giving your own involvement in the Bring Back Girls, the BBOG movement. We can see that education for women in the northern region of the country is also at stake because of the knowledge that breeds freedom, fundamental women rights. And I'm asking you, how do you think we are improving on the girl education in that region, given the fact that, you know, you are also a lecturer?
On the issue of the girl child education, it's not a compromise at all. It's an important aspect, and you can see that the insurgents, the Boko Haram, what they're trying to do is to ensure that girls don't go to school. We can see the attack on schools. About 2-3 days ago, we saw the attack in Kaduna. We saw the attack in Sokoto. We saw the attack in other places that had happened before. Today, there are still girls that we are still expecting, you know, from the Chibok girls, you know. And of course, there were also other places, Dapchi, where girls, you know, have also been taken in Gombe and other places. You know, why we are tracking all this as a matter of data, but it's beyond the numbers. It's beyond the numbers. Something is really robbing us off as a country. You know, girls that are supposed to support this country to make the country better, they are being taken away by insurgents, and it looks like they are helpless. We are not there to be able to help them. And that is why the government responsibility, it is the responsibility of the government, you know, to take care. Section 14 is very clear of the Constitution, to take care of the welfare, you know, and security of its people. And I am not saying the government doing that very well. I'm not seeing Ribadu also doing that work, you know, as the national security officer, you know, of this nation. We shouldn't be having issues of abductions, kidnapping. A few days ago, they are asking for trillions of naira, you know, from the parents of the children that were abducted. The country cannot remain like that. And that's a threat for girls to go to school. As long as the school is not safe, we may not be able to achieve the kind of equality that we want to see in education. As of today, the data is very scary. About 65% of women cannot read and write in the northwest of Nigeria, not northeast, in the northwest of Nigeria. So then you imagine, so what is going to happen with that huge population of illiteracy? And that's why we see that we have a huge population problem. Our population is almost exploding. We have they say Nigeria is 230 million. We don't know whether we're 300 million. Because to be able to address population also has to do with education. If people are not educated, it might be very difficult, you know, for them to be able to control their reproductive rights or their reproductive health. So the issue of girl child education is an important issue. It's an issue that can help us to increase our GDP. We need to understand that it is smart economics, you know, to keep girls in school, to get girls educated, it will contribute to growth, it will contribute to development. And if we don't get that as part of an important priority that our country should, you know, undertake, then we are really far, we are going to be far, far behind. Look at Rwanda. So it is not like we have not, there are no countries that have not seen also what situation. Nigeria cannot say that we had a huge challenge, genocide like Rwanda had. What had Rwanda? Rwanda had genocide, but today they are back. And who are those making Rwanda? It's the women that are making Rwanda what Rwanda is. Remove the president. The rest of the people that are contributing to the economy of Rwanda, they are women. Look at Malawi. You know, look at even South Africa. So there is a need to begin to have that focus. And that takes us to the issue of women in politics. It is not getting better. And one would have expected that. As at this time, we should have had that increase. And in most countries where there is increase, Rwanda has it in the constitution to have at least 30% women. Now they are 60% women in parliament in Rwanda. And so in most countries, so there is no country that will get there without having a legislation that can help. And affirmative action is only asking for contributing to addressing historical injustices that people have suffered. That was what happened in South Africa with apartheid. So there is a need for gender affirmative action for us to be able to address the problem that Nigerian women have faced over time.
Thanks, many thanks again for your elaborate submission. We'll go on a quick break, and when I return, the conversation will continue. Stay with me, I'll be right back. All right, glad to know you're still right there with us. In case you just joined the show, today's conversation edition is still very much about International Women's Day, and of course, we've had many women, women of honor in the midst of all of this, in the midst of International Women's Day, talk about, issues that affect us. But today I have a Nigerian lawyer, doctor of philosophy, and of course an activist championing the cause of women in the lecture rooms and of course on the field. And our ongoing conversation, I've addressed the strategies, the role of civil society in our civil society organization in promoting inclusive governance, and of course, the progress made thus far in ensuring that the safety of a woman and the girl child is prioritized. Again, I want to say many thanks to my guest on all the issues that she has been able to touch and throwing light on all these issues that affect us all. But before I go further, I think it's better for me to quickly open the phone lines for those who want to be part of this conversation. Remember that you can call the studio number 08098877400, showing on your screen right now. Remember, we're streaming live on Facebook and on YouTube, both on Real Talk with Kike platform and of course on Silverbell platform. Ma, again, I say thank you so much for all that you've shared, and of course for creating time to join me virtually. I know you're out of the country, and this means so much to me that you can create time to spend your lunch time with us in Nigeria, But putting that aside, because I know that, you've elaborated on the significance of gender and the constitution that reforms reforms certain issues that, that is supposed to bring safety to Nigerian women. And of course, you've touched on the key objectives of the gender challenges that is facing us right now. But in your own experience, what are some of these major legal barriers that women in Nigeria encounter when seeking for justice for cases of, domestic violence and sexual harassment? You know how we are in our country where, we are a country of hope, so to speak. Since some of the theme of our president today, the present administration is, is hope, and of course we have all this traditional belief, oh, don't take your issues outside, don't let people hear and all of that. How can you further, enlightening people with the legal issues that we go through right here that is a challenge?
Well, thank you very much. I think one of the first space that we need to look at is the space of criminal justice system. Whether the criminal justice system is engendered in such a manner that it allows for women in different classes and diversity, to access it. One of the things that we have realized over the time is that the courtroom are also not very close to women. So particularly women in grassroots communities that also suffer one form of violence or the other. So their ability to be able to access justice, to be able to protect their economic rights or to protect their, their rights to dignity, it's very complex. So it is always, so the justice is a bit, far. And where we also try to engage in justice processes, there's also a lot of delay. So we have seen situations whereby when someone is raped, it takes so long, in court for the court to make a decision. It takes too long to gather evidence because of there's also a lot of things around community acquiescence, where people in the community just feel that, well, the person has done it, so what we should do is to forgive the person, and all of that. I could recall that one of the days of one of my work where a particular girl was raped and by someone who is from Togo, and so they went to bring all the Togolese association members to come and beg. And I said to them that if you guys want to beg that this man should be let alone, can I ask if you can answer this my prayer? That all of you that are here, that you pray that what happened to this young girl, 13-year-old, that was raped by this 60-year-old man should happen to all your children. If you say yes, you can remain there. If you don't say yes, please get away from my office. And that was how all of them left the office. So we realized that oftentimes if people don't think about this issue as issue that affect them. So they look at it as distant, that a 13-year-old is raped. We have several cases of the 13, 12. There's a huge number of incest going on in this country currently during the COVID-19 time. And in Anambra State alone, FIDA recorded 70 incest happening within 2 months. And so in our office too, we have recorded in the last 2 months about 20 cases of incest. And some of these incest cases also lead to, pregnancy. So you see 13-year-old child being pregnant and having had to carry the pregnancy, to term. So there are so many things that are happening, and you expect that the justice system should be able to respond to that. And you will be shocked that those people who are committing those acts, they are also being seen to be working around, either to be on bail, because the justice process is also very long. And to a typical woman who is seeking a matter to court and see the assailants, walking free, on the street, feels that justice is not done to her. One, because the justice process is very slow. We have a case that where a police officer had poured hot soup, on his wife in a police barrack. In a police barrack in this country. The case has gone as far as ECOWAS court. When the court that is supposed to be seized of the jurisdiction, when the police that is supposed to be seized of the jurisdiction refused to take the matter to court, as far as ECOWAS court. And up to today, between 2013 and 2024, the police has refused to release this man to be able to come and answer to the questions of the court. So the process is so complex that even between the police and the court, you wonder, which one is the one that has the higher power. So the judge has continued, asking the police to bring the officer to court, and the police has refused. And the police kept saying that the officer has no case to answer. So we have such, complexity. So imagine the woman who has been affected by this kind of situation. They poured hot soup on her body has been mutilated, for that reason. So who has been asking for justice from 2013 to 2024? It's 11 years ago. And as of today, the police has refused, to release. There's nowhere we have not written to. We have written to the Police Service Commission, we have written to, the former IG, we have written to everybody. Yet, the police has refused to do what they have to do. What is expected is for the judge to go to the police station to go and arrest the commissioner. So, there are a lot, and of course, which cannot do. So we get to court, and the court just says, well, I have done what I am supposed to do. I have sent a subpoena, I have asked them to come, and we have done contempt, they refuse to be served, things like that. So at times, it can be very complicated, like that. So access to justice can be that complicated. And so to the women, what that does is that it doesn't help them in speaking out, because they think that they will never get justice. So until when we restructure all this, that is when we can then have a justice system that is engendered, that can give justice, to women. So there are several instances and several cases of acid bath, that up to today, the court did not, help in terms of bringing justice. The case just died, naturally. And you keep going on and on with it. And yet you see that the system is just not, ready, to make some of these, cases work. So, so those are some of the challenges with the justice system. And that's why one of the things we're asking is that rather than treating the case of sexual and gender-based violence in any regular court, let us have designated courts, that can deal with this issue. So that is what they are specialized in. And that would help, to also support the criminal justice system for expertise. So we have judges who have expertise on anti-corruption, for example. So why can't we have judges who have expertise on sexual and gender-based violence, who can deal with the issue? So that's why one of the developers is asking for a court that is designated, that is supporting and addressing sexual and gender-based violence. And Lagos started it. And so if you look at cases of Osinachi, for example, it didn't take long. Or the cases of Baba Jisha, it didn't take long, for the court to make decision on those cases, because they have a designated special court, that is dealing with it. So we need such special courts, and we have been doing that advocacy. I think Plateau State has one now, and I think Imo State. So we're looking at more more states where that is also going to become like the fashion, for the court system.
All right, many thanks, and I have to say well done for all the great work that you've been doing. But quickly, because I know we are running out of time now, as the executive director of WARDC, you've obtained, favorable judgment against Nigeria in the domestic violence case of, for instance, Mary Sunday versus Nigeria, because, you've cited this Baba Ijesha, Osinachi, and the likes. I would like you to discuss the implication of this landmark ruling and its impact on promoting women's rights in West Africa. And my second question to you, just to juxtapose, the two questions, because we are running out of time. And of course, I did a lot of research work before coming on the show regarding all your works and all of that. And I'm very impressed, or we are very impressed, because you, as a representation of the Monica Osage, a victim of sexual harassment, and of course the accumulated significance attention that has brought to fall, how can legal advocacy, or advocacy is the word, contribute to creating safer environment for women in academic situation across Nigeria? Because when you are saying that a special justice system have to be created, I want you to further touch light on these two questions that I've asked you.
Well, for example, with the academic, I think it's important for the schools to also be sensitive to things that are happening in their environment. We have to make the school safe for women and girls to be able to remain in the school. So the kind of sexual harassment that you see in institutions is not just between lecturers and students. There are also, the research that we did also shows that there's a huge number of sexual harassment by student to students. And so if we allow that to thrive, what it means is that that student will grow up, to also be harassing people in workplace and other places. So we need to deal with it in a very comprehensive manner. There should be policy, but there should also be open door in such a way that, students can go in to report without any form of intimidation. They can report in anonymity, they can report. The students are very good with technology. So there should be technology in schools that can help, students to report without much effort. So those are some of it. We need to bring some innovations. We need to bring some creativity to our justice system. We need to support our administrative justice system in such a manner that it can really deliver justice in the real sense, to the people. As we are today, we don't get that much done, in terms of justice being delivered to people, that to feel, a sense of assurance that, yes, I've seen that. And I am saying that even as a lawyer who is over 30 years at the bar, and I know that even for me, at times I don't get so frustrated and depressed. And so what are we going to do next? And just, and you see, for example, a situation whereby someone was gang raped, and she was able to identify one of them, and we brought that person all the way from Germany to Nigeria, to come and do DNA. And after the DNA, they realized that it was not the father, and then he denied that he didn't know of the rest of the three, And so what happens in the court system is that it happens not to be the one. So he then was lying that it's consensual and all of that, and that was how this woman is to have a child that has no father and all. So the justice system needs to be human. It needs to be people-centered. It needs to also understand from the point of view of women. If the justice system does not go in that way, it might not, develop beyond, where it is currently. So there is a lot to be done in administrative justice system, where justice must be seen as done in the real sense, and also in the criminal justice system, which is, the court system, the police system, and, enforcement system, and all of that. There must also be some support for the judges. One of the things we have also realized is that some of those judges don't understand some of those cases. We have had cases where we're talking about right to life, and the judge was talking about negligence, tortious liability, when we're talking about fundamental human rights. I know that when we're in school, we're not taught human rights anyway, so maybe that was part of it. So we find it very difficult when you bring human rights cases before some judges, for them to understand that these are human rights cases. It's not about tortious liability. It's not about negligence. It's about somebody who had died and has a right to life. or who is about dying and they try to make it. So there is also that thing about capacity at the judiciary level, to be able to understand some of these issues affecting women. So you sit in front of a biased judge who ordinarily thinks that women issues is not very important. So those are some of the very important things that we need to deal with. Capacity building, training, support. There's nobody that's higher than education. So all of us need to be educated. The lawyers must be very creative. The judges must also have what they call creative justice system, which you see happens in other countries that have developed, like South Africa, and other places.
All right, many thanks again for that insight and of course that elaborate submission. But I like the fact that you touched on training, mentoring, and all of that. But I would like to ask you this final question before we wrap up, and I would appreciate if you can answer in 1 minute, because we've run out of time. Having received these prestigious awards like the Defenders Day Awards, how do you perceive the role of international recognition in amplifying, the voices of Nigerian women and, of course, advancing the global agenda for gender equality and inclusion? Because you and I know that our grandparents, our grandmothers, our mothers, were silent for them not speaking up. And I like the fact that you were real by saying that in fact human rights was not taught in school. Maybe when you guys were in school, maybe things could have been better. Maybe women would have spoken more in the world that we live in today. How do we move forward with the issue at hand? In 1 minute, ma'am.
Well, I believe that global recognition also inspire other younger people to also make a difference in this world. There's no point coming to this world if you cannot leave a footprint of justice, and that's what we need in this country. If all of us have the sense of justice and equitability, Nigeria is going to be better for it. Whether it's justice for men, justice for women, for children, for people with disability, if we have that sense of justice, we will be delivered by justice. The country will be better.
All that you've shared on this platform, for keeping it real. It's been an interesting time with you on Real Talk with Kike today. But before I let you go, there's a last segment of the show that I call Trending Story. These are stories that affect us as Nigerians, and this is the part that interests me because this is where I lend my voice as well. Because as a host, you're not supposed to have an opinion, but this segment gives me room to have an opinion. And my first trending today is the solidarity that set Chioma Okoli free. And I don't know if you remembered about a lady who spoke to a certain brand, but I recall this particular story in September 2023, which Okoli had reportedly, bought a brand of tomato paste and also, tasting it and finding it sugary, so to speak. Subsequently, she shared her opinion on her Facebook page, and I feel that at the time of posting that video, on Facebook, there should have been thorough investigation on the tomato paste in question if it was verified that her claims were actually true, and she has the right to sue the company in ways that demand for legal rights. If it's not true, she can also be sued by the company as well. Vice versa. It's that simple. I tell people that leave sentiments apart, because equality and equity means every entity should be treated fairly, regardless of gender and position or what have you. A statement is on. If a statement is untrue, it could ruin the brand and the product for life. And I can tell you for a fact that even my makeup artist was telling me this morning that she doesn't buy that product again because of what happened. And if true that these have saved numerous lives from jeopardy, I feel that we know how things work in Nigeria. The people in question may decide to flex muscles, and abuse the poor lady if she doesn't have any backing. So, and with all that you've shared thus far, regarding, human rights, fundamental human rights, I know what seems like a comment at the time had since got her, embroidered in a triangle with the manufacturer of the tomato paste brand, and of course that's the Erisco Foods. Since then, Chioma Okoli has been arrested not once but twice for exercising her own right to freedom of speech opinion as granted by Section 39 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, I can understand that free speech can be or has been abused in our country, but this is the essence why we need, you know, to uphold more of our civil rights in fighting just causes. You know, it's so unfortunate right now. However, you know, in solidarity, I stand with Chioma on the event of International Women's Day celebration to set her free. You know, Chioma is a married, pregnant mother of 3. Her circumstances and her family ties are extremely important, you know, in terms of consideration and need to be looked upon. And I feel that with all that my guests have shared today, you know, that is where I think that I need to actually, you know, further lend my voice on issues, you know, that affect women, that they feel that sometimes, you know, they can flex their muscles, you know, to throw women under the bus, regardless of, you know, whoever that is behind it. Ma'am, I don't know if you have a suggestion with these trending stories.
Yes, this morning, my people were actually in front of a risk school protesting. Okay. If not that I am here out of the country, I would have been part of that protest this morning. Everybody has the right of freedom of expression. What Chioma did was just to express herself. There are better ways that you would expect a risk school to handle the matter. But what a school has done is to do a show of power, and to also show that the police belongs to him, that they're in his pocket. And it is unacceptable. So I stand with Chioma Okoli and my organization also is standing with Chioma Okoli as of today. So we would continue to support her, and we would also join the legal team that are supporting
for lending your voice on issues that affect women a lot. And this last trending story that also caught my attention that I will be touching on today is the Anthony Joshua that snubs, you know, Nigeria after a win against France. Francis Ngwanu. I don't know if I pronounced the last name properly, but this is actually very funny, and I was laughing, and I could laugh at the first instance by, you know, with a lot that transpired there, and of course how it affected our country. Then, you know, the whole world, you know, the global dynamic village thinking that okay, Anthony Joshua might not win. You know, there's a quick transfer of movement of human capacity, talent, that just as talent and capacity has been exported and imported, you know, all over the world. And that is why we have seen the likes of Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala and Akinwumi Adesina in that global space, in that African, you know, office respectively, you know. And of course, like people like you, ma, you know, it's also the likes of Tiwo Savage as well, you know, being able to perform in front of the King of Great Britain. And I ask, what do I mean by this? Because I feel that when we use our social media in decency, you know, and in appropriation of our talent, they will quickly, you know, switch nationalities, and Africa will continue to lose. And I just want to say that, you know, the same treatment that was given to Anthony Joshua was the same treatment that was also that we gave to the Super Eagles, you know, just a few weeks ago or just a few weeks back at the AFCON, that the likes of Alex Iwobi was booed online. You know, it was only just a matter of, would I say, only a thing for the history that how would I put it now, that repped Nigeria, and we can see all that transpired again. So this goes far to show that we need to reflect on our patriotism through the way that we treat those that, you know, that represent us on the global stage. Because Anthony Joshua snubbed Nigeria and Saudi Arabia, I think, and United Kingdom, and this was someone that, you know, came home to Ijebu-Shagamu, to his roots, when he was on top of the world as a boxer, and now he can't even want to wave the white green flag anymore, identify with Nigeria. We are not seeing these numbers until credible statistics tell us about the number of the best brains that have been drained off Africa during the last 5 years under the Japa syndrome, that we like to call it. I mean, the brain drain that is going on right here in Nigeria. So these are human capacity in large numbers that can make Nigeria or Africa great again, by the way we treat ourselves, or whether we like it or not, we must align with our roots, or even, you know, come back home. You know, I just want to say that let's remember that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is begging our people, at least I mentioned positive thing about our president today, is begging our people to come back home at a recent global event where he was saying that things are going to get better, or things are better in Nigeria. I just feel that a word is enough for the wives, and Anthony Joshua to please forgive the clueless online trollers, you know, that home is home, Africa will forever be home. And unfortunately, I cannot get the submission of my guest right now on this. Thank you so much, you know, for all that you've shared. It's been an interesting edition of Real Talk with Kike with you, my resourceful guest, Dr. Akiyode Afolabi. I wish you the very best as you continue to forge ahead in your career and, of course, your personal life. Thank you, ma. Bye now.
Good morning, Lagos. Good morning, Nigeria. Good morning, Africa. Good morning, world. Welcome to your side radio station with Rhythm 93.7, the #1 hit music radio station. We're #1 in music, #1 in entertainment, #1 in sports.
Let's be honest. Not everyone likes the start of a new day or the rush that comes with a new day.
If you're looking for great fun, intelligent conversations, and entertainment